Hello, folks. I was asking the comments, what exactly do we do here in Shadow Survival? Well, topics we cover will include, but will not be limited to, van life, searching out ghosts, squatting stories, prepping, hiking, camping, and New York City Lower East Side punk rock stories that occurred back in the days. Cool. They got water here. Good thing, baby. We couldn't get a ride. Bunch of uptight lanes. That's okay. We're going to make a great camp tonight. You know your daddy will always take good care of you. Well, we got a house over here. I got the main road this way. The good thing about this spot here, baby girl, is I think that the way we hook our tarp up, it'll mute any kind of like little bit of firelight we're gonna have tonight, so we can have nice warm meals. I love my baby. She's my dog cur. So stick around, folks. Come along for the ride. Well, folks, welcome to my home sweet home for one night. And we're just getting started, because if you're interested, stick around, because I have a really cool New York City, actually Bronx, New York City ghost story to tell you. I think you'd really be interested. It's pretty spooky too, It's a squat ghost story. Today's story is about one of the most haunted squats that has ever existed in the city of New York. I personally lived at this squat from about 1992 to about 1997, approximately 5 years, uh, off and on, but mostly on. And the squat was located on 226th Street and White Plains Road, between White Plains Road and Burns Avenue. Yeah. So I had two friends of mine that I met probably in say 1991 or so. Spike Polite from the band Sewage, and one of his good friends, and it turned out to be one of my good friends also, um, Cronus. Unfortunately, Cronus passed. He's no longer with us, and Spike Polite and I are still pretty good friends. He still lives in the Northeast somewhere, and I live down here in Central Florida. And him and I and Cronus, we all met on the Lower East Side like 30 years ago, and we became friends. And they were living in this squat up in the North Bronx. And because of our friendship, and because at the time I was uh, home challenged. In other words, I was homeless, and they invited me to live in the squat with them up in the North Bronx. And they told me right away, yo, man, it's actually real cool up there in certain ways. I mean, the neighborhood's cool, and the squat, there's room for you. But I'm going to tell you up front, this squat is probably like the most haunted building in the city of New York. And I said, what do you mean? They said, look, you'll see when you get up there, right? And so within the first few hours, really, and I ended up staying up there like 5 years, like I said, off and on. But within the first few hours to the first few days, I noticed that you would catch all kind of movement out of your peripheral vision. A little history about this squat. I'm assuming this building was over 100 years old. It was made out of granite block and brick and so on and so forth. And about 20% of the building it was 4 stories tall, I'm thinking, if my memory serves me correctly. And you can see each floor probably had 3 or 4 apartments. Um, and you can 20% of the building had caught on fire. Now, I don't know what causes fire, and I don't know what the result of it was. That all happened well before my time. By the time I had got there, um, people had been squatting in it off and on for quite a number of years. So anyway, I went up there and they said, "Hey man, you can hang out in this room. This will be your little area. If you like." And so that's what it was. And like I said, I noticed immediately you would get like an eerie feeling, like somebody would be watching you, but there wouldn't be anyone there. A lot of times, no one else would be in the squad. And it's not like we all went up there at the same time or left at the same time. It's kind of like almost having your own little apartment. In an abandoned building, and so everybody would kind of have their rooms and stuff hooked up the way they liked them. Some were more elaborate than others. So, many countless times I was up there alone and with people. Um, but no matter where you were at in the building, whether if you were coming in and going to the room that you occupied or maybe one of your friends' rooms, even if there was no one in the halls or there was no one else in the building, you would always feel like, maybe you were being watched, or you would catch movement out of your peripheral vision, and it like it'd be a shadow, like something come out of a corner and went to another corner, and there's a shadow here and a shadow there. And you look and you're pretty sure you saw some movement, but when you look, it's a shadow. So you say, well, I must have just been imagining it. Well, that's the way I played it in the beginning. I was like, at least you got like a squat now. You got somewhere to live in these brutal New York City winters. So just be grateful for that. And I was, so a lot of those uneasy, eerie feelings, I would just kind of, put in the back of my mind. But not only did I see these, now what I understand to be shadow figures moving around in my peripheral vision, because who knows what had happened in this building long before it ever became abandoned and a squat. Who knows? I mean, like I said, it was over 100 years old in New York City. Who knows if people have been murdered there, died there, etc. Maybe people died in that fire that damaged about 20% of the building. Who knows? So after I was there for a month or two, I acquired an AM/FM radio, and of course I bought batteries when I got the radio, and it ran off of 2 AA batteries. And I noticed that I took it up there, turned it on, I went to sleep, and when I woke up, the batteries were dead. Now I only slept 5 or 6 hours, but I said, okay, maybe you got a bad pack of batteries, and maybe I did, maybe I didn't, but it happened to the next set of batteries I brung, and the next set of batteries I brung, and this went on and on and on and on, year in and year out. Um, I could get a brand new pack of batteries, and I usually bought the 2-pack because the radio run on 2 batteries. And later on, I would make a point to never buy more than 2 batteries. What was the point? Because as soon as I put the batteries in the radio, I could turn the radio and play. Everything was fine, no problems. If I nodded out for 2 minutes or 2 days, if I went to sleep for 2 days, it didn't matter how long I was asleep. When I woke up, them batteries were drained empty. Now, like I said, I must have took batteries up there over 200 times to listen to that AM/FM radio in the course of that 5 years or so that I squatted, and every battery that I took was drained empty every time I woke up. So it didn't matter if you turned the radio off or not. You tried to turn it back on after you had been to sleep, the radio would not work because the batteries were drained empty. And then it escalated beyond that. I used to keep a saucer on my bedside table, and I would keep one of those like $5 or $6 candles, the bigger ones, because there was no power, there was no light. So I would like to have a light. I kept the light on at all times when I was in there, and I had 2 or 3 other candles too that were around the room. But at nighttime, or if I got ready to go to sleep or something, whatever, I would blow those other candles out and make sure they were out, and only have the one that was on my nightstand burning, which was enough to illuminate softly most of the room, in a soft light. And so if I woke up or something, I could see. And I took great pains to make sure there were no papers or debris of any kind around this candle. I mean, the last thing I want is to burn up in the middle of in a squat in the North Bronx. You know what I mean? That wasn't in my plans at all. So I took extreme care. Um, so I had been living there probably about, I don't know, maybe 3 years, 3.5 years. And I woke up one night, and the whole nightstand was engulfed in a fire, and it had started creeping up the back wall. Well, of course, I got up immediately, and I took a blanket and I put it out. A little time passed. Of course, I was like, well, you may have thought you were being careful, but obviously you left some kind of debris or paper around there. How else did it catch on fire? And no one else was in the squat. And like I said, it didn't really burn too much, but the fire had started to try to climb the wall. And of course, I was freaked out. So after that, I even took more extreme cautions. And what finally made me just say, you know what, it was cool while it lasted, but I'm out of here. I would say about a year, maybe a little more than a year later, the same thing happened again. But this time when I woke up, the whole wall was on fire. And I made sure I didn't leave any papers or nothing that could burn. I didn't, like I said, I didn't want to burn up. And so I took extreme caution. And whatever was occupying that building, it may have been living in the spirit world, but it could definitely make its presence known in the real world. And and I noticed, another reason why I ended up leaving, and I noticed this long before the 5 year mark, but when I went up there, I always felt drained when I came out. Yeah, I always felt drained, and like I said, I don't know what the real history of that building was, but it was definitely an intense squat. And when I woke up that second time, this was about probably close to the 5 year mark when I had been living up there off and on, mostly on. Occasionally I would meet someone or hang out with one of my friends in one of the other boroughs or downtown Manhattan, but most of the time I would end up going to squat in the Bronx. And I might stay downtown Manhattan for 3 or 4 days, and then go up there for 2 or 3 days and recuperate and recover. But I noticed the more I stayed there, the longer that I stayed there, I would feel really drained every time I would come out of that squat. So it got to the point where the cons far outweighed the pros, and fortunately for me, I had met some people, and I was able to move on and get different type of housing. So that's what I ended up doing. Now look, guys. If you have any suggestions or things that you would like us to investigate or talk about or discuss, please leave a suggestion in the comments, and there's a good chance that I probably will get around to discussing those things.